Hello, music tech students. Today we're talking about how to use Logic to get started with a remix project, or a mashup, I guess, if that's the direction you want to take. And we're starting by opening a new project in Logic, just an empty one. And when it asks me what kind of tracks, it doesn't matter because we're importing audio from your desktop. Likely at this point, you've picked something from YouTube or Spotify, something we've used the sample extension. So on your desktop somewhere you have a file. And remember, if we want to access those things, it's going to be F and all files. Before we drag this into Logic, there are a couple things that we're going to set up first that, again, take advantage of amazing tools that Logic has. Click on Tempo right up here at the top, Project Tempo, and underneath Smart Tempo Project Settings, there are two things that we're going to change, and actually others if you wanted to. First, set new recordings to on plus align bars and beats. And essentially what that does is that anytime I bring a clip into Logic, it's going to find where those downbeats are, snap those to your project. Really useful. You can, if you had a lot of silence at the beginning of your clip that you recorded in sample, your sample extension, we can trim here if we want, and set imported files. There we go. So I guess I did that backwards. Set imported files to align bars and beats, and this one would also, if you made a recording, would also find those bars and beats for you if you were adding something on top. If you keep project tempo, it's going to keep a single tempo for your project. And I advise that you do this because if we want to use loops from the library or we want to bring in other clips, it's nice if everything stays the same. You can also try adapt project tempo, but I'll tell you that it does get a little bit crazy as you go from recording to recording with the many different tempos, especially with live music that's not at a steady tempo. All right, once we've done those, we can close that. Let's see, in my downloads, I have something I'm going to use, 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. And as I drag this in, what's going to happen, go ahead and asking me sample is set to 44.1 for its sample rate, but that's fine. Okay, we don't want to import tempo information. We want Logic to find it. Now, it doesn't look like much has happened, but you can see that it moved it, it trimmed it a little bit at the very beginning, but if I hit play, I probably need to pull this down a little bit. Because I had my project tempo at 120, you can tell that it's already sped it up. So let's slow it down just a little bit. And the beautiful thing is that with the algorithms that it uses, you're not going to lose a lot of fidelity as you speed it up and slow down, and until you get to the extremes of tempo changes. And again, maybe you can't tell, but all of those beats, if you look up here at the top, these ticks that represent the bars and the beats, you can see that those transients or those events that are happening have already lined up. And let's go ahead and bring them back to the beginning. All right. Now the power in this is that if I wanted to do a remix, I mean, really at this point, if I go to my loop library and I find some kind of beat, that when I drag this loop in, or this clip, it's going to be at the same tempo as 9 to 5 or at this 101 and line up with my clip that I started with. Sure. So let's grab this one, pull it in here, and voila. I have a drummer that's supplementing Dolly Parton. I'm not sure if she'd approve, but it lines up with those bars and beats. So that's step number one. Second thing that we can do that's pretty easy, again, taking advantage of Logic, is to do something called stem splitting. And stem splitting is going to be taking all this one file and using algorithms to tease out the different elements, the bass, the guitar, the piano, the vocals. All of those are going to be separated into individual tracks, which is really pretty incredible. The way to access that is right-click, or hold Control if you haven't set that up yet. Go down to Processing and then stem splitter. So again, on my clip that I would like to separate, right click, go down to processing, and then stem splitters right there. It was at the top of mine, but that's because I'd used it recently. So if you haven't used it yet, that's where you find it. And for now, let's go ahead and separate all of these. At this point, if you wanted to, if all I wanted is create like a karaoke track or something, I could uncheck all of those and then have it split out vocals and then put everything else into a submix. That's, useful, but for us, let's go ahead and have it separate all of them. It's going to take a moment. If you've done a large file import, if you're dealing with 3 minutes or so of music, that process might take a little bit of time. All right, so we can see that here is my vocal track. Here's the drums, bass, guitar, piano, and anything that it couldn't quite categorize is going to go down into that final track. I'm curious what we put here. Some horn pops. Yeah, those are horn pops. So it's not perfect, and as you listen to these, you'll notice that the fidelity is not awesome, but for a tool that's going to help us start doing a remix, like, it actually is really pretty useful. I had added that drum clip in there. I'm going to take Dolly Parton's drums out because having two drummers can be really tricky, just having them sync up, especially if it's a live drummer with somebody who with a session drummer. Like, those two things don't work out, but I'll take out Dolly's drummer by hitting mute. Now you can see how we can start to piece together a new version of this or a remix. All right, at this point, besides just adding those beats, I can actually take advantage of the session players in my remix also. If I just add a session player right now, that session player is going to come in with its own chord progression, and that chord progression may or may not, but I'm going to say probably is not going to line up with what Dolly Parton's band is doing in 95. So instead of doing it that way, the first thing we're going to do is come up with the chord progression. And the easiest way to do that, you could type in every single chord up here. I can say new chord and then type it in and find those, but I can also, again, use the power of Logic to find that for me. And the way that we do that, let's take this piano part that we have split with our stem splitter, and I'm going to drag it up into the chords. It's not actually going to move the track, but it is going to use that piano to find all the chords that happen in 9 to 5. And voila, there are my chords. And now if I create a session player, it's going to follow this chord progression and it will line up with what's going on in the rest of the band. So let's go ahead and add a session player, and let's add, for our remix purposes, let's add a bass. And sure, disco slap. Now, instead of its own progression, the disco slap player is coming in, or the bass player is going to come in and follow those things that were discovered up here at the top. Now, let's just do a little test. Let's mute this bass player. Let's mute our old drummer, and let's see what we got with our 9 to 5 here. Go. And that's a great way for us to start our remix project.